out expecting an answer, but nothing happens. You ask God for a small door to open, yet it remains shut. You plead for a little breakthrough, but it seems delayed, and in those moments, doubt begins to creep in. You wonder if God hears you. You question if he sees your struggle. But what if I told you that God is not ignoring you? What if I told you that the silence is not rejection, but preparation? What if the very thing you are asking for is too small compared to what God is about to do? Stay with me, because today you are about to see the hidden hand of God working in your favor in a way you never expected. You see, we serve a God who never operates on our level of expectation. He is always beyond. His plans are never ordinary. His ways are never predictable. When you ask for something, he doesn't just give you what you ask. He gives you more than you ever imagined. But the problem is we often think too small. We look at our needs through the lens of human limitations. We say, Lord, if you could just help me pay this bill, I'll be okay. But God is saying, I don't just want to meet your needs. I want to overflow your cup. We say, God, if you could just give me a little breakthrough, I'll be satisfied. But God is saying, I don't just want to give you a breakthrough. I want to shift your entire life into a new dimension. God is not a God of barely enough. He is not a God of just enough. He is a God of more than enough. And when he moves in a way that will make you stand in awe. Look at Abraham. He prayed for just one son, but God made him the father of nations. Look at Solomon. He asked for wisdom, but God gave him wisdom, riches, and honor beyond any king in history. Look at Job. He lost everything, but God restored him with double. You see, God doesn't just respond to your request. He exceeds it. But here's where many people struggle. We pray, and when God doesn't answer in the way we expect, we think he's saying no, but what if his delay is a sign that he's preparing something greater? What if his silence is not rejection, but a setup? Sometimes God will withhold what you're asking for because he knows it's beneath what he wants to give you. Imagine a child asking for a small toy car while the father is preparing to give him the keys to a real one. The child cries thinking the father doesn't love him, not realizing that the father is planning something far greater. That's how God works. You see, when God speaks, he speaks from eternity. When he plans for the future, but when he moves in ways that will not just bless you for today, but for generations to come. That is why you must learn to trust him when things don't make sense. You must learn to believe that even when the answer seems delayed, he is working behind the scenes. The Bible says in Ephesians 3:20, now to him who is able to do exceedingly abundantly above all that we ask or think, according to the power that works in us. Did you catch that? Not just above, but exceedingly and abundantly above. That means whatever you are expecting, God will surpass it. But the challenge is, can you believe it? Can you trust that even when life seems unfair, God is still writing a bigger story? Can you hold on to faith even when the answer is taking longer than expected? Because let me tell you, when God finally moves, it will make sense why the delay had to happen. When the blessing comes, you will understand why he made you wait. When the doors open, you will realize that he was preparing you for something bigger than you ever prayed for. God is not just a provider, he is a multiplier. He is not just a healer, he is a restorer. He is not just a deliverer, he is a life giver. He is not just working on your today, he is working on your future. And when you surrender to his will, you will see that what he has planned is greater than anything you could have asked for. So don't settle. Don't shrink your prayers to the size of your current situation. Don't let your faith be dictated by what you see now, because what God is about to do in your life will exceed your expectations in ways you never imagined. When God begins to move in your life, it won't make sense to those around you. People will question how things change so quickly. They will wonder how someone like you, who came from nothing, is now walking in blessings beyond measure. But what they don't realize is that God was preparing you in the unseen places. The waiting season was never about delay. It was about development. You were being shaped. You were being tested. You were being positioned for something greater than what you originally asked for. That is why some doors had to close. That is why certain relationships had to end. That is why the answer didn't come when you expected it, because what God had planned for you was bigger than your requests. Look at the story of Joseph. He had a dream that he would one day be in a position of great authority, but he never could have imagined the path that would take him there. He didn't pray to be sold into slavery. He didn't ask to be thrown into prison. He didn't request betrayal, but each painful step was a divine setup. Every hardship was part of God's plan to place him not just in a position of influence, in a place where he would save an entire nation. Had God answered Joseph's prayers the way Joseph probably wanted, he might have been freed from prison early and returned home, but he would have never reached the throne. And that's what so many of us don't realize. We pray for relief when God is preparing us for rulership. We ask for escape when God is getting us ready for elevation. That is why you must not be discouraged when things don't go your way. That is why you cannot give up when it seems like your prayers are not being answered, because when God moves, he does not just give you what you want. He gives you what will establish his purpose in your life. And what he is preparing for you will be so great that your past struggles will no longer matter. The pain, the disappointments, the moments of waiting, they will all make sense when you step into the season of more than you asked for. Think about Peter. He was just a fisherman when Jesus called him. His prayers were probably simple. Maybe he wanted more fish, a bigger catch, a little more success in his business. But Jesus had something greater in store. He told Peter to cast his net one more time, and the catch was so large that the boat began to sink. But that miracle was only a preview. Peter thought he had received more than he asked for that day, but God had something even greater in mind. Jesus was not calling him to just be a successful fisherman. He was calling him to be a fisher of men. You see, many times we settle for the small blessing because we don't realize that God is preparing us for something far greater. We rejoice over a temporary breakthrough, but God's vision for us is generational. We ask for a small victory, but God wants to make us history makers. That is why the process is sometimes painful. That is why the journey is longer than expected, because what he is doing in you is bigger than you. Think about Hannah. She prayed for just one child, but God didn't just give her a son. He gave her Samuel, a prophet who would change the course of Israel. She didn't just receive a blessing for herself. She became a part of God's divine plan. The same goes for David. He was a shepherd, forgotten even by his own family. If you had asked him what he wanted, he probably would have said a little recognition, a little respect, maybe a good position in the army. But God had something bigger in mind. He wasn't just calling David to be promoted. He was calling him to be king. That is why you cannot lose faith in this moment. That is why you must keep believing even when the answers seem far away, because what is coming is greater than you can imagine. God is setting things up. He is aligning people, opening doors, preparing opportunities that are beyond your prayers. Some of the things you are asking for right now are too small compared to what he is planning. Some of the situations that look like delays are actually divine rerouting, so that you don't settle for less than what you were created for. But here's the key. You must be ready to receive, because sometimes God is not waiting to move. He is waiting for you to be positioned. He is waiting for your faith to rise. He is waiting for you to stop thinking small. You cannot ask for something big while having a small mindset. You cannot pray for more and still live with a mentality of lack. You must prepare yourself for the abundance that is coming. You must enlarge your faith, because when the door opens, you cannot afford to hesitate when the opportunity comes. You must be ready to step in with confidence, knowing that God has already gone ahead of you. And let me tell you, when he begins to move, it will be sudden. You will go from waiting to walking in the promise overnight. You will go from overlooked to overfilled. You will go from praying for a small breakthrough to stepping into a lifetime of divine favor. The things that took others years to accomplish, you will achieve in months. The battles you struggled with for years will suddenly be won. The situations that seemed impossible will shift in an instant, because when God moves, he moves with power. He moves with acceleration. He moves in a way that makes it undeniable that it was his hand at work. Think about the Israelites. They were in bondage for 400 years. They probably prayed every day for deliverance. But when their breakthrough came, it wasn't just freedom, it was favor. They didn't just leave Egypt, they left with the wealth of the land. That's what God does. He doesn't just bring you out, he brings you out better than before. He doesn't just answer prayers, he exceeds them. So what are you asking God for? What are you believing him to do in your life? Let me challenge you today. Whatever it is, believe bigger. If you're asking for a little provision, believe for abundance. If you're asking for a small opportunity, believe for something greater than you ever imagined. If you're asking for one door to open, believe that God will make a way where there was no way. Because when he answers, it won't just be enough, it will be overflowing. And when it happens, you will look back and realize that every delay was worth it, every trial had a purpose. Every moment of waiting was setting you up for something far beyond what you originally prayed for. God's ways are higher than ours. His thoughts are beyond our understanding. And when he moves beyond what we could ever expect. So don't limit him with small prayers. Don't shrink your faith because of temporary struggles, because what he is about to do in your life will be a testimony for generations to come. There are times when you look at your life and wonder why things haven't worked out yet. You have prayed, you have waited, you have trusted, but nothing seems to be happening. It feels like you are stuck in the same place, facing the same struggles, dealing with the same disappointments. But what if I told you that the delay is not denial? What if I told you that God is not ignoring you, but preparing something so big that if he gave it to you now, you wouldn't even be ready to handle it? There is a timing to God's blessings. When he moves, it will happen so suddenly that it will leave you in awe. God does not operate according to human deadlines. You may think you are running out of time, but God is never late. He is setting things up behind the scenes, arranging divine connections, orchestrating events, and putting everything in place so that when the time comes, nothing can stop what he has planned. You might feel like you have been forgotten, but heaven has not forgotten you. The dreams that God put in your heart, the promises he whispered to your spirit, the visions he gave you, he will bring them to pass in a way that exceeds your expectations. Think about the Israelites at the Red Sea. They had just been delivered from slavery, and now they were standing before an impossible situation. The enemy was behind them. The sea was in front of them, and there was no way out. But what they didn't realize was that God had already planned their escape. They thought they needed a bridge, but God had something greater in mind. He was about to split the sea, and when he did, they didn't just walk through, they walked through on dry ground. That's the kind of God we serve. He doesn't just open doors, he makes ways where there are none. Right now, you may be standing at a Red Sea moment in your life. You see no way forward, and you feel trapped by your circumstances. But God is about to do something that will not only bring you out, but will bring you out with victory. You will not come out empty-handed. You will not come out broken. You will come out stronger, wiser, and better than before. And The very thing that was trying to destroy you will be the thing that God uses to elevate you. The enemy thought he had won, but he doesn't realize that God has already written the final chapter of your story when you pray. Don't pray small prayers. Don't limit God to what you can see. Believe that he will do more than you ask. The Bible says in Isaiah 55:8, 9, for my thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are your ways my ways, declares the Lord. As the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways, and my thoughts than your thoughts. That means whatever you are believing for, God has a higher plan. Whatever you are expecting, God has something greater in store. His ways are beyond human understanding, and when he moves, it will be in a way that no one saw coming. Look at Lazarus. His sister sent word to Jesus asking him to come quickly because Lazarus was sick, but Jesus didn't come right away. He waited, and during that time Lazarus died. By the time Jesus arrived, the situation seemed hopeless. The people said, if only you had been here, he wouldn't have died. But Jesus knew something they didn't. He wasn't just planning to heal Lazarus, he was planning to raise him from the dead. If Jesus had come earlier, the people would have only seen a healing, but because he waited, they saw resurrection. You might be in a place where you feel like it's too late. Maybe you think you miss your opportunity, that things have gone too far, that your situation is beyond repair, but God is about to step in, and when he does, it will be greater than you expected. What looked like an ending will turn into a new beginning. What seemed like a loss will become a testimony of restoration, and what you thought was over will be brought back to life in a way that only God can do. This is why you cannot give up. Now, this is why you must keep trusting, keep believing, keep holding on to the promises of God, because at the right time, in the right season, everything will come together in a way that will leave no doubt that it was the hand of God at work. And when it happens, you will look back and realize that the waiting was worth it. You will understand why certain doors had to close, why certain people had to leave, why certain prayers weren't answered the way you expected, because what God had in store was far greater than anything you could have imagined. Think about Ruth. She lost everything, her husband, her security, her future. She could have given up. She could have stayed in Moab and lived in regret. But she chose to follow Naomi, and because of that one decision, she stepped into the divine plan of God. She thought she was just looking for a way to survive. But God had something greater. He was setting her up to meet Boaz, to be redeemed, and to become a part of the lineage of Jesus Christ. One decision changed everything. That is why you cannot let your past define you. That is why you cannot let your current circumstances limit your faith, because you have no idea what God is setting up for you. You may think you are in a season of loss, but God is actually preparing you for a season of divine restoration. You may think you are just barely making it, but God is positioning you for an overflow. What seems like an ordinary step of faith could be the very thing that leads to your greatest breakthrough. And when it happens, people will wonder how it all came together. They will look at you and say, how did this happen so fast? How did you go from being forgotten to being favored? How did you go from being rejected to being elevated? And your answer will be simple. God did more than I asked for. He didn't just answer my prayers, he exceeded them. He didn't just meet my needs, he overwhelmed me with his goodness. So get ready, get your faith up, get your expectations higher, because when God begins to move, it will be sudden. You will step into blessings that you didn't even see coming. You will receive answers that will make you fall to your knees in gratitude. The years of waiting will be replaced with an abundance of favor. The pain of the past will be turned into a testimony of his faithfulness. The struggles that once held you back will become stepping stones to something greater. God is not done with you. He is not finished writing your story. The best is not behind you. The best is ahead, and what is coming is bigger than anything you have prayed for. Get ready, because when it happens, it will happen in such a way that you will know without a doubt that it was the hand of God, and all you will be able to say is, this is more than I asked for. You are standing on the edge of something greater than you can comprehend. The weight of your past, the delays, the disappointments, none of it can stop what God has prepared for you. You may not see it now, but heaven is already moving on your behalf. There are things being aligned, doors being unlocked, divine encounters being set up that will shift your life in a way you never imagined. And when it happens, you will look back and understand why it had to take time, why you had to go through certain struggles, why you had to endure the waiting season. Because what God is about to do will not just be an answer to your prayers. It will be a fulfillment of His divine purpose for your life. The mistake many people make is that they give up too soon. They look at the situation and assume that because it hasn't happened yet, it won't happen at all. But that's not how God operates. God works in the unseen before He manifests things in the natural. You may think nothing is changing, but in the spiritual realm, everything is shifting. Your obedience, your patience, your faithfulness, none of it has been wasted. Every tear you cried, every prayer you whispered, every time you chose to trust God, even when it didn't make sense, it was all leading up to something. And when the time comes, the floodgates of heaven will open in a way that no man can stop. Look at Joseph. He was given a dream as a young man, a vision of greatness, a glimpse of his destiny. But instead of stepping straight into that promise, he was thrown into a pit, sold into slavery, falsely accused, and in prison. Everything in his life seemed to go in the opposite direction of what God had spoken. But what Joseph didn't realize was that every setback was a setup. Every painful season was a step toward his destiny. And when the time was right, he went from the prison to the palace in a single moment. The years of suffering couldn't compare to the magnitude of the blessing that was waiting for him. That's what happens when God steps in. He doesn't just restore, He elevates. He doesn't just bless, He overflows. What looked like a delay was actually preparation. What felt like rejection was actually redirection. And when the door finally opens, you will understand why every closed door was necessary. Because what God has for you is bigger than anything you could have arranged for yourself. There are things you've been praying for, believing for, waiting for, and you've been wondering if God has heard you. But I want to remind you that God is not ignoring you. The silence is not His absence. The waiting is not punishment. He is working behind the scenes. And when He moves, it will be sudden. One day you'll wake up and realize that everything has changed. The opportunities will come. The breakthroughs will happen. And the favor will surround you in a way that leaves you speechless. This is why you cannot settle. You cannot lower your expectations to match your circumstances. If you pray small prayers, you will receive small answers. But if you dare to believe for more, if you dare to trust that God is not just able, but willing to do exceedingly abundantly above all you ask or think, then you will step into a dimension of blessings that go beyond human understanding. God is not limited by your past. He is not restricted by your current situation. He's not intimidated by the obstacles in front of you. He is the God who speaks to dry bones and brings them to life. He is the God who calls things that are not as though they were. He is the God who turns graves into gardens, mourning into dancing, sorrow into joy. When you look at your life, you may see broken pieces, shattered dreams, and unanswered questions, but God sees a masterpiece in the making. He sees the full picture. He sees how every piece will fit together in the end. And what He has planned for you is not just about you, it's about His kingdom, His glory, His purpose being fulfilled through your life when He blesses you. It won't just be for your benefit, it will be a testimony to others. People will look at you and see the goodness of God. They will see what it means to trust in Him, to wait on Him, to walk in faith, even when things don't make sense. David was just a shepherd boy when God anointed him as king. No one saw him as a king. His own family overlooked him, but God had already chosen him And though it took years before David stepped into his destiny, when the time came nothing could stop it, he didn't have to fight for the throne. It was given to him by divine appointment. That's what happens when God decides to elevate you. No man can block what he has destined for you. No enemy can stop what he has set in motion. No opposition can stand against what he has already decreed. You have to get this in your spirit. God is not just answering prayers. He's fulfilling promises. He's not just opening doors. He's establishing your purpose. He's not just blessing you. He is making you a living testimony of his faithfulness. When he moves, it will be in a way that no one can deny that it was him. Maybe you've been feeling discouraged. Maybe you've been wondering if things will ever change. Maybe you've started to accept that this is just how life will be. But I am here to tell you that the enemy wants you to settle, but God wants you to expect more. The enemy wants you to believe that your best days are behind you, but God is saying that your best days are ahead. The enemy wants you to give up, but God is saying, hold on, I am about to do something greater than you imagine. When the Israelites wandered in the wilderness, they got used to the manna every day. God provided just enough for them to survive, but when they stepped into the promised land, the manna stopped because God was shifting them from survival to abundance. He was bringing them into a land flowing with milk. And they no longer had to depend on daily provision. They stepped into overflow. That's what happens when God brings you into your next season. The things that once sustained you will no longer be necessary because he is taking you to a level where you won't just survive, you will thrive. You have been faithful in the waiting. You have endured the tests. You have walked through the fire, and now God is about to release something in your life that will be undeniable. The things you used to struggle with will no longer be a battle. The chains that once held you back will be broken. The doors that were once closed will swing wide open, and you will look around and realize that what God has done is bigger than anything you could have asked for. So don't shrink your faith. Don't lower your expectations. Don't settle for less when God is preparing more. Keep praying, keep believing, keep trusting, because in one moment everything can change. In one moment, the years of waiting can be replaced with a flood of blessings. In one moment, the prayers you thought had gone unanswered can be fulfilled beyond your wildest dreams. The God who parted the Red Sea, the God who raised Lazarus from the dead, the God who took Joseph from the prison to the palace, the God who took David from the shepherd's field to the throne, that same God is working in your life right now. And what he is about to do will not just be an answer to your prayers. It will be greater than you asked, bigger than you expected, and more than you imagine. There is a moment coming when all the waiting, all the trials, all the delays will make sense. Right now, it may feel like nothing is happening, like your prayers are just echoing into the silence, but God is not ignoring you. He is not blind to your struggles. He is not deaf to your cries. The very thing you think is being delayed is actually being prepared. God is setting things in place, orchestrating events, aligning people, and positioning circumstances so that when his blessing comes, it will not only be exactly what you need, but even more than you could have imagined. Think about the story of Hannah. She prayed for years for a child. She cried out to God in desperation, wondering why he had not answered her. What she didn't realize was that God wasn't just preparing a child for her. He was preparing a prophet for Israel. Samuel wasn't just an ordinary son. He was a leader, a voice for the nation, a man who would anoint kings and shift the course of history. If Hannah had received her child earlier, it may not have been Samuel. But because she waited on God, he gave her not just a son, but a destiny changer. This is what happens when you trust God's timing. He doesn't just give you what you ask for, he gives you what will fulfill his divine purpose in your life. You may feel like you're in a season of barrenness, like nothing is producing fruit, like the doors just won't open, but barrenness is not the end of the story. In fact, barrenness is often a sign that something greater is coming. Every woman in the Bible who faced barrenness, Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel, Hannah, Elizabeth, gave birth to something extraordinary. What God is forming in you is not small. What he is bringing to life in your situation is not ordinary. And that is why the wait has been long. That is why the process has been difficult, because what is coming is greater than you expect. The enemy wants you to think that silence means God has abandoned you. He wants you to believe that delay means denial. But faith says, even when I see nothing, I believe God is working. Faith says, even when it seems impossible, I trust in the God of miracles. Faith says, even when I have been waiting for years, I know my moment is coming. The enemy fights hardest right before the breakthrough. He sends discouragement, distractions, and doubts to make you let go of the promise. He whispers lies, telling you that nothing will change, that you should settle, that you should stop believing for more. But that is exactly when you must hold on. That is when you must stand firm and declare that what God has spoken will come to pass. The enemy cannot stop what God has planned for you. No man can cancel what heaven has ordained. No circumstance can block the blessing that is on its way. When Jesus arrived at the tomb of Lazarus, everyone thought it was too late. They said, if only you had been here, he wouldn't have died. They had faith that Jesus could heal, but they didn't yet understand that he could resurrect. They had limited faith. They believed in a healing God, but not in a God who could bring dead things back to life. But Jesus said, did I not tell you that if you believe, you will see the glory of God? And with one command, Lazarus walked out of the grave. Some things in your life look like they are too far gone. Some dreams seem dead. Some opportunities seem lost forever. But God is not just the God of new beginnings. He is the God of resurrection. He can restore what was stolen. He can breathe life into what seemed finished. He can open doors that no one thought possible, and when he does, it will be undeniable that it was his power, his grace, his divine intervention. You cannot afford to give up now. You cannot afford to settle for less. If you could see what was on the other side of this battle, you would understand why the enemy is fighting so hard to stop you. If you could see what God has prepared, you would refuse to quit. If you could see the breakthrough that is just ahead, you would hold on with everything in you. The struggle is an indicator that something is coming. The warfare is a sign that you are close. The delay is proof that what is being prepared is greater than you thought. God has been refining you in the waiting. He has been strengthening your faith, testing your endurance, building your character, and removing what is not aligned with his will. The things you have lost, the people who walked away, the doors that closed, they were necessary because what is coming cannot be built on weak foundations. What God is about to release requires stability, maturity, and wisdom, and that is what he has been developing in you all along. Noah had to build the ark before the rain came. He had to obey before he saw the evidence. He had to trust when everyone else doubted. And when the flood came, those who mocked him were the ones left outside. But Noah and his family were secure because they had followed the instruction of God. This is why obedience matters. This is why you must trust even when you don't understand, because when the time comes, you will be positioned in the right place at the right moment for the right blessing. Don't lose faith in the middle of the process. Don't let the delay shake your confidence. Don't let the silence convince you that God has forgotten you. He is still writing your story. He is still setting things in motion. He is still leading you toward the promise. And when the time is right, it will happen. Suddenly, one day, things will look the same, and the next, everything will have shifted. The opportunity will come. The door will open. The provision will be released, and the promise will manifest, and it will be greater than you ever expected. There is no limit to what God can do. There is no situation too hard, no prayer too big, no obstacle too great. The only limitation is what you choose to believe. If you expect little, you will receive little. If you believe for more, you will step into overflow. God has more in store for you than just survival. He has abundance, favor, and supernatural increase, but you must believe, you must keep going, you must keep praying, keep trusting, keep standing in faith, because at any moment God can do what seemed impossible. At any moment everything can change. The enemy thought he had won when Jesus was crucified. He thought the story was over when the stone was rolled in front of the tomb, but 3 days later, what looked like defeat turned into victory. What seemed like the end was just the beginning. And that is what God is about to do in your life. What looked like a setback will be your setup for a comeback. What seemed like a loss will be turned into a testimony. What felt like a delay will prove to be perfect timing. Don't allow temporary circumstances to make you doubt eternal promises. Don't let what you see make you forget what God has spoken. If he said it, he will do it. If he promised it, he will fulfill it. His word does not return void. His plans do not fail. His power is not limited. And what he is about to do will be beyond what you asked, beyond what you imagined, beyond what you dreamed.